have around 20 symptoms that I have on a daily basis, day in, day out. I think it's important to tell the world that it is actually the fact that there are so many symptoms and that they last for days and weeks and months and years.
Fainting, palpitations, stomach pains, headaches, dizziness, lightheadedness, insomnia, and fatigue, and also brain fog.
Lightheadedness, fatigue, shortness of breath, high heart rate on standing. I have issues with sweating.
Fatigue, brain fog, and the inability to stand for a long period of time.
I'll be resting peacefully at a nice 70 beats per minute to then, upon standing up, 170. Migraines, fatigue.
So palpitations, dizziness and pre-syncope, potter's feet, headache, breathlessness, fatigue and brain fog.
I have a really hard time standing up or sitting up when I first get up in the morning, or just in general. My heart starts pounding fast.
Heart palpitations, my heart races, and it's extremely quick change. It can go from sort of 55 to 57 beats per minute resting, and that can spike almost immediately to like 180, 190 beats per minute.
Get hot a lot and dizzy spells and sometimes feel sick.
Heart rate goes quite high when I'm standing. It will go even faster if I move about.
Mostly palpitations. I get extremely dizzy. When I get the palpitations, I get really bad hot sweats. I feel sick.
I feel I'm constantly in fight or flight all the time, always. Always full of adrenaline, always got the jitters, always got the shakes. It's a horrible way to live, no appetite.
Some days I'll really struggle to find the right word when I'm trying to talk to somebody. Blood pooling in my legs. I really struggle with standing in one position upright still. So for example, I really struggle with standing still in a long queue. Sometimes I will faint. Sometimes with the fainting, my muscles will tremor.
All of a sudden, I started to pass out everywhere. The fatigue, where some days you just can't function, you just can't do anything. You're so tired that you can barely move from one room to another.
Coat hanger pain, which is sort of across here and like the shoulders up into the head, and migraines. Just can never cool down the summer. I can never warm up in the winter.
The gastroparesis means that I struggle to eat any food really at all now. A lot of physical pain as well, and a lot of it seemingly an immunity to bugs, so I get a lot of bugs.
Not seeing well, the pain, the fatigue, brain fog is all over the place all the time. So I have difficulty to remember what I was going to say as now. I have difficulty to follow conversations. I have days where I have very severe gastrointestinal complaints.
I get chest pain, I get breathless. I'll just speaking. I can get quite breathless, eating, breathless.
Chest pains, the palpitations and the bad headaches. That results in lack of sleep. I don't sleep well at all.
Actually getting out of bed, it kind of feels like your body is being dragged down by this magnet being gravity, but like you just feel so weak.
I have developed both rapid and delayed gastric motility and intestinal motility.
Neurological symptoms, post-exercise issues. Someone might have their makeup on that day and be looking as if they're a picture of health, but you have no idea what's going on inside. So
also, you do not have to faint in order to have POTS. So that's a common misconception, and POTS is a common condition, not a rare condition. So chances are you might know someone with POTS. I have a genetic condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's quite common for individuals with hypermobile type to have POTS. I caught 2 viruses in a bacterial infection, and ever since then I got so much more sick.
The likely cause of my POTS is from COVID-19. After speaking to my cardiologist, this is very common, and yeah, it seems to be a big issue, especially in young women after suffering with COVID-19.
I had symptoms of POTS for a lot of my childhood. It worsened around puberty and then worsened again when I got glandular fever and then COVID.
Around 23 years ago I had quite a nasty stomach bug and a virus, and I just never seemed to recover from that.
Medical professionals have said to me that they believe I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so I believe that's what has caused my POTS.
I first presented symptoms when I was in my late teens, and in my early 20s I had surgery and it sort of kicked off again. When I turned 30, I got diagnosed with EDS.
Being confirmed to having POTS as well as Ehlers-Danlos and mast cell activation syndrome.
I was slowly getting worse, and then obviously had this pinnacle point where I was under a severe amount of stress, and I got a virus which wasn't COVID, but it was a virus, and that just took me down really.
It is very hard for us to say what exactly caused it. POTS started after my pregnancies, but it's hard to say if that had anything to do with it. I also have been diagnosed with Epstein-Barr.
I'm not sure what the likely cause of my POTS is. However, dysautonomia does run in my family. My symptoms became worse once I'd contracted COVID.
So 10 years. It took me 10 years to get diagnosed, which is not acceptable at all. And for at least 9 of those 10 years, I was told it was anxiety or puberty. The neurologist took like a mock tilt table test and immediately phoned a cardiologist and made me an appointment.
It took me more than 20 years to finally get a diagnosis. Like so many, it was put down to anxiety, depression. It's all in my head.
Around 10 years before one GP who happened to know about POTS and my journey with tilt table tests and diagnosis actually happened.
First had the symptoms probably when I was a teenager, both of POTS, probably gastroparesis and the mast cell. I was actually 42 years old when I was first diagnosed, which was a very long time.
It took a good few months to get diagnosed with POTS. I mean, the services are stretched and I was initially put down as having anxiety.
I was first diagnosed after passing out at work a couple of times. Unfortunately, it's been a bit of an uphill battle with the NHS because they don't take POTS as seriously as they should. I'm now trying to see if I can get myself re-referred to the specialist team.
It took around 10 years and around 33 expert visits. And in the end, it was searching ourselves on the internet that made us think of POTS.
It took 12 years of being told I had normal teenage illness and anxiety to actually be told I had orthostatic intolerance, and a further 2 years to be told I had POTS. I was very, very lucky to have lots of healthcare professionals who believed me and pushed me to see specialists and consultants to get the diagnosis.
I saw many doctors and consultants, and I was repeatedly psychologised, told that I was anxious and stressed, and to continue doing things that were harmful for me, like exercising when symptomatic. So around 20 years before diagnosis.
Took a good couple of years on the onset of my symptoms becoming worse. I was put onto beta blockers for heart palpitations at the time, and I was told that it was just anxiety.
It took me around 6 months to finally get diagnosed, and that was diagnosed through a specialist cardiologist and several tests, including tilt table test.
I was told, no, this is just anxiety, you're having panic attacks. I found out about POTS on YouTube and I was like, wait a minute, this seems like what I have. And I tried to bring it up with my doctor, cardiologist. They were like, there's no point in a tilt table test, just drink water and have salt. But it wasn't helping me.
It took me about 5 years to get diagnosed after a positive active stand and exercise test. It was very much put down to anxiety, which is common, I know.
I think the most positive thing to come from the diagnosis is a really simple one, which is it just finally felt like somebody was listening, and that I might actually be able to get some help for this.
It's taken so much away from my life that was camping, setting up my teepee and my stove in the mountains, walking, and literally overnight it just was taken from me.
I felt sick more and kept getting more dizzy spells and more headaches.
POTS has changed my everyday life hugely. I rely on family and friends a lot more now. I'm unable to do things for myself, so I've lost a lot of independence.
On my good days, I can do things that most people my age can do, and the things that I enjoy, I've just got to listen to my body. On my worst days, I can't shower and I can't even stand.
My everyday life is affected drastically by POTS. I've gone from basically being able to do everything to virtually being able to just get out of bed, and I mean that wholeheartedly. The task of just getting up to get a drink, getting up to go to the toilet is draining.
Developing POTS literally changed my life overnight. I went from being quite active and outgoing to pretty much being stuck in bed at first.
It's basically changed my life. Even though I'm on medication, I still can't do most of what I was able to do pre-diagnosis. I've recently had a baby. I'm struggling a hell of a lot more now than what I was before.
I was an aerial performer and I wanted to continue that. That was something I could not continue. Like, such a hard grieving process. It's kind of like refinding yourself in a way.
It's fair to say that POTS had a devastating impact on not only my life, but also the life of my husband and children. I can no longer work, and that is a very, very hard thing.
The psychological impact, when my life changed, I felt like a failure. Obviously it's not my fault that I've got POTS, but yeah, the psychological impact, it can be huge.
The more I passed out in places, the more anxious I would get about going to those places. So yeah, I couldn't really go anywhere on my own in my late teens.
I wasn't able to do the things I enjoyed, like walking in the countryside and going to the gym. I then spent lots of time trying to explain to other people what my condition was, so I wasn't judged for not being able to engage in the things that I was doing before.
I was always sort of a super active, busy person. It changed my life. I have to adapt kind of the way I exercise, the way I live. Yeah, so it was quite life-changing, I'd say.
Couldn't always do stuff that I wanted to do, and I just had to be mindful of my energy, so like I would avoid certain things. And I felt really isolated, really lonely, and just like I just felt really lonely. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. I was just lonely.
And so these really are life-changing conditions, they really are. And one of the problems for me is that I'm a man, and so far as I'm aware there aren't many other men with POTS, so that makes it even more challenging.
Well, the medication is for some people really great, but the lifestyle changes is gonna hold you in good stead, you know, forever, and work really well alongside those.
My biggest management tip ever is pace yourself. Compression garments, saviours, the electrolytes, and snacks that are salty. Shower stools are just great.
Increasing my salt intake, increasing my fluid intake.
Compression workout leggings, the ones I've got, they go right up to under the bra line, so I get the compression in the abdomen as well.
Avoiding triggers, pain medication.
For me, breathing techniques, definitely. So I know if I'm bad, so if my heart's at 180, I lay down and I do my deep breaths and it will gradually calm down.
Meditation, I really disregarded diet and thought, how is diet going to do anything for me? But the histamine diet in particular, or working on my diet, having the complex carbs, increased salt, smaller regular meals, all those things that help POTS, has been actually really beneficial for me.
Pacing has been a massive key for me, and it took me a long time to get used to how to pace.
Not forcing through when I'm symptomatic.
If I'm having a good day, I will often try and do too much and then spend the next 3 or 4 days struggling to get out of bed.
Daily walks, it's very contra-intuitive to do it.
But I try and stay as active as possible, as that helps to keep my blood pressure at a decent level.
I've had to find new hobbies that my body can cope with. One of those is swimming in the sea. My legs feel so heavy all the time, like I'm walking in quicksand. And when I'm in the water, they just feel so light. You can lay on your back and float. So I would lay on my back in the water and bring my knees into my chest and back out again.
Weight training at the gym. I do stay away from cardio because it makes my symptoms worse.
Exercise has been a huge part of my journey, and on the EDS side and the POTS side, but you do have to listen to your body and you do have to rest.
Using a wheelchair, she's called Ruby, and it just means that I can get back out again and I can join in what everybody else is doing, and I'm still quite shattered afterwards and the next day, but it just means that I'm safe, I can't faint, I don't get the horrible headaches because I'm sat down.
Recognising as well when your mental health is impacted, because inevitably at some point your emotional well-being will take a blow, and reaching out and receiving support if you do need it. I guess when you've been psychologised by medical professionals, when you are going to them with symptoms, accessing mental health services can feel worrying. An important thing to remember is to look after both your physical and your mental health.
My medication intake has changed quite a lot over the last 5 years. It's a very difficult balancing act. Initially I was on fluticasone.
I have Aberdeen, which decreases my heart rate, so I have fewer episodes of tachycardia, and I also take Mydrodine, which narrows my blood vessels to increase my blood pressure. This helps with dizziness and fainting.
It's very much trial and error. The one that I've had the best tolerance to is Mydrodine.
So for me personally, I take Avabradine, which definitely has helped in terms of giving me more of a ability to be able to do things without feeling like I'm going to pass out, because my heart was just going sky high before.
I was put on slow sodium release tablets and Avabradine, and this with lifestyle changes, they have made a huge beneficial improvement on my life and my quality of life.
I have tried several beta blockers, which I find, for me, they don't work. My resting heart rate when I'm asleep drops way down into the 40s, and then when I get up in the morning it's about 190 when I stand up again.
I haven't done well on any meds, but one thing that has helped me is IV fluids. I received these for both my GI issues and my POTS, and I've seen such significant improvement, though I know that is a less accessible form of treatment.
I would definitely say to keep hope. Hope is absolutely key. Don't give up. There has been points where I've laid on the sofa and I couldn't stand up, I couldn't shower, and I couldn't take care of myself, take care of my kids, and I was, ready to give up. And take my kids to school now. I cook dinner for my family. I go on walks. I do work for a few hours. I can shower standing and wash my hair standing, which is obviously like a big deal.
The best management I have found for my POTS has helped me a lot, so I can do things that I can usually enjoy doing.
We can still enjoy life, and I still enjoy life, and I don't feel guilty about it.
I've got 3 kids, we're making it work. I'm able to walk, I do have a stick with a chair. I haven't had to use my wheelchair for a while. Life's good.
From receiving a diagnosis, I've been able to receive treatment that I perhaps otherwise wouldn't have had access to.
As hard as POTS is, it has also given me so much positives in terms of the people that I have met,
the friends that I've made and the outlook on life that I now have that I didn't before.
Once you have a name for the condition that you've got, it's very, very helpful to be able to reach out to other people that also suffer.
I've made so many new friends. I've gotten so much more support, and like there's this communal understanding in these group chats and in these support groups, and it's like having a big warm hug. There's hashtags on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and there's all these movements. It can be really empowering.
You're not alone, because it can get lonely.
It is so important to let yourself feel your emotions and really process anything you're going through, whether that be that grieving process of your life changing and seeing other people doing things that are either really hard for you to do and people take just for granted, or things you just cannot do. Know that your life is just as valuable as any other healthy person.
I've learned that to enjoy small moments in life and to smell the fresh cut grass and to walk in the woods and breathe in the fresh air.
I've learned to bake and cook and do all sorts of yummy things in the kitchen.
I'm able to use my experiences to educate others.
I think I found my new mission, trying to raise awareness.
I want to be a social worker, and I want to be able to impact those lives that people are dealing with chronic illnesses, especially probably young people.
Don't give up hope. Keep fighting for yourself. Keep fighting the doctors. Keep getting those referrals and get to the bottom, if you can, of why you develop POTS. Build your knowledge and learn about your conditions.
It does change your life. I can't say it doesn't. I can't just do everything that everyone else can, but it doesn't limit my life. You just have to adjust and realise that it's okay to be slightly different from anyone else and live your life your way and understand your own body, and just know your triggers, know what's happening, and just take each day as it comes sometimes.
There just needs to be so much more awareness. So this is a horrible thing to have. There's no cure, there's not enough research into it, and a lot of doctors aren't clued up on it.
I think education and awareness, and this is in the wider community but as well as in the medical one, because I think there are still a lot of doctors that perhaps don't understand what POTS is or the impact that it can have.
Speaking to medical professionals, don't psychologise your patients. It's not helpful. And listen to them, listen to your patients.
POTS charities are rarely ever mentioned, even though there is quite a large amount of the population who have POTS. And I think if you don't have POTS and you want to help, and if you have someone who has POTS in your family or one of your friends, make sure to just research and see how you can help them, and just be there. Just be there to support them and get the conversation up about POTS.
More understanding on hidden disabilities and illnesses, and how, I have a blue badge and I have really desperately needed this in points where I could barely walk and I could hardly get my kids to school. And I've had people come up to me and be pretty horrible about it,
Just be patient if you can, we are trying our best. It's probably quite frustrating for other people, because our POTS can look different from one day to the next. And to just be adaptable if you can. And, sometimes there's things that we really do think we're going to be able to do, and then it comes to it and we've got a flare up and we just can't.
It's hard for people to see people go through things sometimes, and sometimes people don't really know what to say or do. Reach out to them. Depending on the person, I am always open for questions.
How the others can help. Make them aware in particular of triggers like heat, so that they know that they have to try to avoid that for you, that they have to ensure there's a chair standing there for you, things like that. So speak up.
Having family that are happy to adapt and change days out for me so that I could go and still enjoy those experiences have been, you know, really great for my morale.
Also being open with your family and letting them know you're not okay so they can try if they can to support you.
For other people to understand that you're not going to be able to reply right away, you're not always going to be able to go out, but we still want to be invited.